Hello and welcome to the Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Sue Helm of the 104th Legislative District in Dauphin and Lebanon counties. The Susquehanna River is sick, and in order to ensure it's here for future generations to enjoy, the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission is launching a unique campaign to start the healing process. Joining me today to talk about this campaign is the Executive Director of the PA Fish and Boat Commission, John Arway. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Sue.
Let's talk about what's happening with the river. Like a couple weeks ago, I saw in the paper this fish that actually you were out fishing with a friend of yours and he caught it. And it was quite a sight that I had never seen before. And thank goodness you were the one that was with him and knew what to do to have it analyzed. Tell me what happened there.
Well, a friend of mine had scheduled to go fishing the river in the Harrisburg area on Election Day, believe it or not. And the idea was for me to go out and take the pulse of the fish that day. And we were fishing. We caught quite a few fish, and he happened to hook one that, and when it came up out of the water, we knew it was unusual. And we thought it was a sucker because suckers have a terminal mouth and they're distinctive. And there's a lot of suckers in the river, and you occasionally catch one. But then we saw it was a smallmouth bass. And as soon as I saw it, I thought we had to do something about finding out what it was on the jaw of this smallmouth bass. And I called it fate because not many people could have had access to the tools that I have access to as Director of the Fish and Boat Commission and protector of the fish in the river. So we kept the fish, even though we have catch and release regulations on the fishery of the river. And I got it to our fish pathologist who does testing of fish health issues, who then sent it to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Michigan State University to specialists in the field of cancer in fish. And then we waited to get their reports, their diagnosis back, and found out it actually was a cancerous tumor. And then we told the story about what it was and why that's important, because it's really a signal that the river's telling us that there are things going on that are abnormal and asking us to intervene to make the river well again.
And we definitely want the river to be well. I know then you launched a campaign, Save Our Susquehanna. I have a little button here that I'd like people to see, and hopefully they'll purchase one. But tell us about the campaign, Save Our Susquehanna.
Well, everybody identifies with S.O.S. That's the international distress signal that people send out when they're in trouble. And we thought it was very appropriate. It fit the message for the Susquehanna. And we've been talking about and debating the issues about whether the Susquehanna is sick or not. Impaired is a regulatory definition. And while we've been debating that, we've been seeing more and more information from the river about how it is sick from the fishery itself. We saw dead fish dying in the river in 2005. We've been discussing this and debating this since 2005. Our scientists have been collecting information. We've been working with federal agencies like U.S. Geological Survey and EPA and our state DEP and academics, college and university professors around the basin. And we've been collecting all this information, but we still haven't answered the basic question, is the river sick or not? So as a result of that, I thought after I saw the cancerous fish that it was time to do something. We got together with staff and felt that S.O.S. was the appropriate label to put to this campaign. Now, I'm in state government. You don't see government agencies in campaign funding mode very often, but I felt it was important because only 10% of the people in Pennsylvania fish. They buy a fishing license. And they usually buy a license for the privilege to fish, to pay for the privilege to fish. But a lot of that money we spend on conservation. Our waterways conservation officers go out and patrol the river to make sure that people have their fishing license, but also people aren't there polluting the river. And when we do find people polluting the river, we investigate those cases and then enforce our law. The legislature gave us enforcement authority for water pollution enforcement in 1909. So we've been in the business of watching after the health of fish for a long time. So in this case, we decided that we were going to organize a campaign around raising some funds and make a commitment of at least $50,000 from the Fish and Boat Commission to put into this as a match for any public funds that we can raise. And we talked about how best to do that. So even though 10% of the people in Pennsylvania fish, 90% don't. So they really can't identify with the health of the Susquehanna because when you look at it, it looks the same as it did 50 years ago. So for the people that don't fish, they don't realize that the fishery is in decline, and we've had problems over the last 10 years. So we thought, well, if we could get other people to buy a license for conservation rather than just the privilege to fish, and then match those funds to multiply the effect that we could have with those funds, and then bring out essentially a badge to show your support for the river, and that's where the SOS button originated. You can, if you buy a fishing license, you can buy the alternative display, the button, your fishing license number, your CID number, customer identification number is put on it, and for $10, that money will be dedicated to the campaign to fund projects to fix the river.
And to buy a fishing license, if people watching, they think, oh, it's going to be great to fish, which it is. It's still fun to go out in the river and fish. How do you buy a fishing license, and how much is it? And tell us about the different kinds of fishing licenses.
Well, we got a variety depending on who you are, if you're a resident or a non-resident, if you're a senior or a junior, youth. You have to be, if you're 16 years old or older, you need a fishing license to fish in Pennsylvania. If you're a youth, if you're under 16, you can buy a voluntary fishing license, so a voluntary youth fishing license, for $1 and $1.70 issuing agent fee. And then that money goes into a fund for youth fishing programs, kind of like the fund for fixing the Susquehanna. But in addition to that, for every license we sell, we get $5 in federal funds that multiplies the impact of the money that we get from fishing licenses. If you're 16 and older, you have to buy a basic fishing license, which is $20 and a $1.70 issuing agent fee. And you can buy that either at our outdoor shop at fishandboat.com or at one of 900 issuing agents. All the small bait and tackle shops along the river and throughout the state sell fishing licenses. You'll see a decal on their door, authorized Fish and Boat Commission fishing issuing agent to sell fishing licenses. And most of the major box stores sell fishing licenses too. So all you have to do is walk in and give them your identification and pay $20, and you're ready to go either to fish or to contribute to the Save Our Susquehanna campaign.
Now with hunting, I know there's times you can start at a certain time to hunt. If you want to fish, it's 24 hours a day. What's the fishing rule?
Well, that's the nice thing about fishing. You can find a place to fish 24/7, 365. However, there are restrictions on certain places where you can and can't fish certain times of the year. For example, we close most of our stock trout waters from like March 1st until the open day of trout season so that we can stock them with fish, and then they get opened usually the second week of April. So there are certain restrictions, so when you get your fishing license, you'll get a summary book of fishing regulations. I encourage you to look at that before you decide where you go fishing.
Yeah, that's interesting because I put out a lot of trout stocking guides. I mean, they just are like hotcakes when the spring comes before the first day of trout. But just tell me, like, when people decide to go fishing, like when do they decide to go? And there's certain rules of first day of trout and things like that also. So is there a bass season and a trout season, and how does that work?
Yeah, there is, and there are special days. A lot of people look forward to the opening day, whether it's the opening day of baseball or opening game of football. We're a major league sport too, so fishing has our opening days. Trout season is probably our most popular opening day. Everybody prepares. It's kind of like coming out of winter and into the spring, second week of April. Everybody goes out and helps us stock fish in preparation for fishing opening day. So it's people, when I was a young child, I laid awake at night in anticipation of 8 o'clock coming around for opening day of trout season. So there's special days, and we try to keep them special, but we have opening days for the entire state, for the southeast region, because of the seasonal differences. We're able to open trout season earlier, 2 weeks earlier in the southeast. And then we have our Youth Mentor Day, which is a special opening day for kids. So we believe just the atmosphere around opening day keeps them special and really gets people excited about fishing.
The kids love that, the parents love it too. But let's just talk a little bit more about the condition of the river and what this button will help do. Like, we're going to cure the Susquehanna, right?
We're going to cure the Susquehanna, and we're not going to wait for somebody to say it needs to be cured, which is why we've been waiting since 2005. And we're going to begin work with the funds that we get from the button sales and the license sales above and beyond what we normally sell from now until the end of the year. And that's going to go in a restricted account, and we're going to start doing things. And I just finished a column that will be appearing in my next Straight Talk article in our next Angler and Boater magazine called S.O.S. One of the things I mentioned in the column is we're going to do it one cow at a time, one tree at a time, one fence post at a time, one nutrient management plan at a time, or one bottle of pills at a time. And with that kind of summarizes some of the things that we can do. We can fence cattle out of streams with fences and keep them out of the stream, and we can plant trees in riparian zones around streams to keep the water cool and the nutrients taken up before they get into the water and wash into the river and cause the algae blooms that lower the oxygen levels that cause the problems with the young fish that we're seeing since 2005. We can educate people, work with hospitals and physicians throughout the basin, like Geisinger and the state's doing now, and teach people that it's not good to flush your old pharmaceuticals down the toilet like we used to tell everybody all the time, because our sewage treatment plants can't treat them, which is one of the reasons why we find intersex, which is a condition of male and female in bass below sewage treatment plant outfalls. We're not equipped to treat the chemicals that we're putting down the toilets and getting into the river, and that's just another sign that the bass in the river are in trouble.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate you educating us today. We're going to talk to you later. We're going to keep, checking out this S.O.S. program, and we're here to help, and appreciate you being here. We'll look forward to you being here again. But that's all the time we have today for today's program. If you have any questions about what you've just seen or any other state-related matter, my contact information will be on the screen in just a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join me again next time for another edition of Legislative Report.